smart cities. Larry Warbo is the executive director of Trust Science and Technology Center at UC Berkeley here. Among many prior positions, Larry was the CTO at the Escher Research Institute, and he worked also at Accenture, SASE, and Direct Systems. Please help me welcome Larry for this last session.
I'm not going to the forum today, and I think as we got a little preview in the previous session that was chaired, there are a number of security and privacy-related issues around some of these concepts of smart grid. Before we start, this topic is also of great interest to me as well because of my association and work here with the Trust Center here at UC Berkeley. In particular, we're looking at a number of security and privacy issues around next-generation infrastructures that are focused on financial services and banking, healthcare and healthcare IT, as well as critical infrastructures and some of the energy-related areas that we've been discussing today. So I'm pleased to chair this panel. We have a distinguished set of panelists who are experts in the field. And I think what we'll do is I'll introduce the first speaker, John Walton, and then we'll move on through each of the talks. I'll speak a little bit at the end about some privacy issues, and then we'll have a moderated panel discussion, much like the other sessions, and then we'll leave ample time for questions from you all. So our first speaker of the panel is John Walton. John serves as the Chief Information Officer for the City and County of San Francisco. In this role, John oversees the delivery of technology services and to the citizens of San Francisco and internal support of 23,000 employees. Prior to working for the City of San Francisco, John served as the CIO for the City of San Jose and as a Senior Practice Manager for Unisys Government Systems. So please join me in welcoming John.
Set up right? Are we okay? Yeah. Everyone hear me all right? Great. So thanks so much for having me. This is a really interesting topic. As I was thinking about this topic, I have a number of staff that I usually collaborate with there in my department and across the city talking about this. And I know you heard from Melanie Nutter, our Director of the Environment, yesterday, who's a good friend of mine, and we collaborate on a lot of projects. But I was really struck by this conversation and by the topic, because it really brought to light for me a couple of things. Really the balance between security and innovation and what we're trying to do. And it's interesting when I go to conferences now and we talk about smarter cities and innovation and where are we trying to go in the future with technology in cities, there really is this push and pull dynamic happening within government and what we're trying to achieve. And it can be a challenge sometimes. And so I want to talk about that a little bit today, and then, of course, I'm very interested in what my other panelists have to say, and then interested also in the dialogue at the end and what you're thinking, and some of the questions you might have for us. So let me talk a little bit about San Francisco and what we see on a day-to-day basis. And when I go through my slides, it's always fun when I have other people help me on my slides. My chief security officer was very involved, and my deputy chief innovation officer was very involved. You can always tell when you have a chief security officer help you with a slide because you start getting titles on your slides like threat landscape, which is pure security officer speak for she's not happy with how she sees things going in terms of security in the city. But it is true. It is true that we're seeing a very large increase over the past few years in really much more organized security attempts on the city network. And San Francisco, because of our geographic location, because of some of the political and perhaps unpopular views people see of San Francisco, we do become a target at times, right? A popular target for people trying to make a point, much like a Microsoft or something like that. If you can hack San Francisco, you're definitely going to get your name in the newspaper. And so we've seen a real uptick in terms of cyber incidents, cyber threats against our network. And you have to remember, our city, much like many of your cities, are a very large one in terms of complexity. We have our own utility commission that we operate with power and water. We have our own transportation authority that does light rail and buses. We have our own airport that we manage. And so along with the typical city things you see, we have a very diverse, very complex IT infrastructure we have to manage. And we're a very diverse organization. We're not organized in a very top-down corporate model by any means. Much more, as I was telling a group outside, a much more parliamentary model where some people are appointed and some people are independently elected. And so it takes a real team approach to try to come up with ways to secure this network. And so along with this increase, I'm happy to say, is we've become much more successful, knock on wood, defending against these types of attacks. And I think we've become much more organized. And perhaps we've learned something from the innovation journey. We're not taking the classic IT top-down approach of trying to be extremely directive to departments about how to do things, but we're becoming much more collaborative. We're really trying to leverage the knowledge of the entire organization and the skill sets we see in each department to try to come up with a much more sort of agile team approach to how we protect the network. And I'm very proud of the staff in the city that manage this. On the other hand, we're trying to balance this against innovation. And some of the things we're trying to balance is the security, with all due respect to my security team, they would love everything to be dual-level authentication, everything encrypted, everything locked down in a data center, only giving access to those people who passed an extensive FBI background test, access to anything in terms of our network or data. On the other hand, I have an innovation group, and we're all about breaking down the walls of government, making government more open, more transparent, more accessible. How do we give people more access to the data? Because one of the things we've learned in our government is, for us at least, a smart city isn't just the instrumentation in the streets and how much technology we have embedded in our city, but really the people in our city are some of the best instrumentation, I guess, if you will, that we have in our city. We have a very engaged population, a very high-tech population in San Francisco. You've probably heard how many companies are now moving into San Francisco, and so everyone on the street has a tablet or a smartphone, and they want to be very engaged with government, and not just engaged in a civic sense, but in the old days, we would ask people to come and to pick up trash or help us remove graffiti and things like that. What we found in the past few years is that actually we get more volunteers to come help us write programs and things. So along with the fact that we've gone through some significant budget reductions in the city, what we've done by breaking down sort of those traditional walls in government is try to allow the population, these civic, entrepreneurial volunteers to come in and really help us create better applications, better tools for the public to interact with government. And one of the examples of this is we have a program, and I'm always amazed at how successful this program has been for us. And around the nation, actually, if you look at what Chicago and Boston and New York and the feds are doing now with open data. But really, in the old model of government, in the secure, if you will, mindset of government, what we would have done is taken all of our data, encrypted it, put it on servers, made sure it was backed up, and stored somewhere no one had access to it unless you were a government employee. And if you, the public, wanted access to it, we would print you out a hard copy, or we'd give you a report with some of the data you wanted in it. But the idea around open data in government is we've spent a lot of time over the past few years trying to really classify our data. We have, as you would suspect in government, thousands and thousands of sets of data. Some of it very complex, very information-rich data, some of it very simple data. But we had never really gone through a discipline process of really understanding the data we had and trying to balance providing that data in an online usable format to our users where they could write their own applications, where they could do their own data analytics around it, versus us doing that for them. And so we spend a lot of time on that now, actually. And by releasing the data, what has happened is it's allowing the public, it's allowing companies or individuals or volunteer groups to come in and write applications or do analytics around our data, huge data sets and small data sets, really do data mashups, and help create applications that are making government better for people without, I should say, compromising the integrity of really the systems behind the scenes. And so there was a lot of talk as we were going through this over the past few years about Things as simple as, why can't I find out when the bus is going to show up on time? Why can't I find a parking place in San Francisco? Why can't I find, in this case, where sex crimes are happening or what the crime rates are in my neighborhood? And all that data in the past was considered very sensitive data because it contained personal information. And so a lot of what my security team does now is work with my innovation team and really try to help understand the structure and the sensitivity of the data, not just restricting access to the data. So we try to take the data sets now, and we don't try to pre-presume what people would use them for, because one of the things we've learned is we're not the best experts on what innovative folks such as yourselves might want to use the data for, but really take some of the sensitive personal information about it. If I have data with the city and it has my home address or my cell phone number or my social security number, we make sure we go through a very exhaustive process of stripping out the sensitivity of the personal information, but still providing a rich enough data set to the public so that then they can take that and turn it into a really useful application or tool. And through releasing the data, we've created over 100 applications that didn't cost government anything, are very useful. Anything as simple as finding a place to park in the city now. We have applications for that without compromising our transportation systems. But we're trying to create that bridge between innovation. How do we create this smarter city? How do we create these applications you can run on your smartphones or on your tablets and have access to things that in the past government has had a real challenge in providing to the public without compromising the actual integrity of the back-end systems behind it. And so we're spending a lot more time on the data model, frankly. We feel the data is the building blocks to a lot of innovation here in the city. And we want to make sure that the data is as available as possible to the public. Another thing that went along with this is one of the inhibitors we found in the past is, like many governments, we have an aging infrastructure, many old systems that store data in very proprietary formats and things like that. And we were spending a lot of time, frankly, doing data conversion or wondering how we were going to make these systems accessible to the public, because we have old mainframe systems and many old proprietary systems that we bought over the years that we haven't had a chance to modernize yet. And so one of the decisions we made when we began this journey of both securing and releasing data was really looking at the cloud. And for us, what the cloud means is really balancing between what systems should we own and operate and control internally versus where should we partner with perhaps external vendors and find an external vendor that already has a proven solution, not just a proven solution, but a secure and accessible solution. And so we spend a lot of time now when we're buying new systems or converting old systems. We have a policy that we've passed that's really changed our approach on this, where we call it our cloud first policy, where we require that any department or any user that wants to implement a new large system that we think could have some data or a benefit to the public really consider a cloud, a vendor-provided, a SaaS or a infrastructure as a service or a software as a service type model, and really take into careful consideration, does this need to be an internally hosted, managed, lockdown system, or is it possible we could find a very secure system that we could both conduct the city business on securely but allow access to? And I'll point you to, we have an Open 311 API. This is probably a good example of a success in this area where we actually collaborated with a lot of other large cities and jointly created an API that allows citizens, and if you go to the City of San Francisco Facebook page, there's actually applications now where you get direct access into our CRM system where you can report problems, where you can report potholes and things like that. And so by collaborating with the private sector and really examining how we do business, rather than doing the old model where we would write the application, you go to a web page, we're leveraging public cloud technology and really trying to figure out how we could integrate that with our back-end system securely to create a more usable system. So I want to leave enough time for the other presenters. I know I went through that quickly, but I know there'll be a lot of dialogue at the end. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to the conversation.